let's cover that. Let's get the meeting started. I'll call our October meeting of the San Mateo County Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Commission meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Let's do a roll call and establish quorum. Commissioner Huber-Levy?
Yes, I'll begin with Chairperson LeBuise.
Present.
And I am also present. Commissioner Bocanegra?
Present.
Commissioner Flores?
Present.
Commissioner Liu?
Present.
Commissioner Nori? Amaya?
Present.
And Commissioner Satvik Nori?
Present.
Commissioner Rasmussen?
Here.
Commissioner Swope?
Here.
And Commissioner Wilson?
Here.
And I think Commissioner Bustos has not joined us yet. I didn't see his name.
I haven't seen him either.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Ron.
Hi, Ron.
And we'll have others called on during the meeting, but if anyone, any members of the public want to introduce themselves on chat, feel free to do that. All right. The first item on the agenda, as we were just talking about before we called the meeting to order. Oh, Susan, I see your hand up.
I move that we meet remotely per AB 361.
Is there a second?
I
Second.
Who was that? Who seconded?
Amadi.
Oh,
Mama D.
Yes.
Mama D,
Welcome.
technically, I'm glad to hear you're feeling better and that you're back. Technically, you haven't been sworn in yet, so you can't second a motion.
I'll
Okay.
just second it this time, but you get the next time.
But you will be sworn in soon, so just hang
No
in there.
problem. No problem.
And Commissioner Bustos has also joined us.
Welcome,
Hello.
Alan. Okay. All right. Anyway, I think we have a second on that. And just before we do a quick voice vote, we were talking just before the meeting started about the message that came out from County Executive Callaghy about how commissions will need to return to in-person meetings in March of 2023. So more to come on that. And that syncs up nicely with the plans we already had to try to do community meetings and hybrid meetings. So we have to plan that, but we have a few months to do it. All right, with that said, let's get a voice vote on the motion. Commissioners, if you could come off mute, and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion passes. We will hold this meeting remotely in accordance with AB 361.
I move we approve the agenda.
Thank you, Susan. Is there a second?
I second it.
Any discussion about the agenda? Anything look wrong to anyone? Anything someone wants to change?
I have one addition I'd like to make. I see on our letterhead on the left-hand side, we don't list Supervisor David Canepa there, and he's our liaison to the commission. So is it possible that we could add his name and his title there, so he's also included on our agenda?
Sure, we can start doing that going forward. That's a good addition. Thank you, Commissioner Rasmussen. Any other edits to the agenda as it was published a few days ago? Okay, let's vote to approve. I think we can do this on voice vote also. Commissioners, if you could come off of mute, and all in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
Aye.
No, or abstentions? Great. All right, we have our agenda. And we also need to approve the minutes from our September meeting. The minutes are in the agenda packet that was distributed. Were there any changes or edits to the minutes? Did anyone have any?
I have one.
Okay,
And I conveyed this to Karen already. Instead of Chief Kane has changed his policies to now allow youth commissioners to enter juvenile hall. To rephrase that to Chief Kane will allow commissioners under the age of 18 into detention facilities in keeping with WIC 225 and 229.
great. Sounds good. Anyone else? Oh, Paul, that you're applauding. You're not raising your hand. I got it. Okay. Anyone else have any edits to the September minutes? All right, hearing no others, let us vote to
We
approve.
don't have a motion.
We don't have a motion. Do we have a
I
motion
move we approve the minutes as amended.
as amended by Commissioner Wilson? Great. Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. If there's no other discussion, let us do another voice vote. Commissioners come off mute. All in favor of approving the September minutes as amended by Commissioner Wilson? Say aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, great. So the minutes have been approved. Thank you. And now moving on to our commissioners, we will be swearing in Mama D. But first, I'm sorry to say that I did receive a letter of resignation from Commissioner Roxana Enriquez during the past month. Commissioner Enriquez is working on a master's in public policy, in addition to the many other things that she has going on in her life, and basically needs to cut back on not just this commission, but some other boards and commissions that she serves on. So she regrettably asked that she step down right away. So that's why she's not here and not listed on the masthead of the agenda. So unfortunately, Commissioner Enriquez's service on the commission is over for now. But her perspective and experience were a great addition to the commission, and I learned a lot from her during the time that she served. So she is no longer on the commission. We happily, though, are going to officially now add another member of the commission, and that is D. Uhila. Mama D, am I saying your last name correctly?
Yes,
Thank you. Okay, good. D. Uhila is ready to be sworn in. So Judge Etizadi, take it away.
all right, very well. Good evening, everybody. Very well, Ms. Uhila, so nice to meet you. I'm Susan Etizadi. Could I kindly ask you to raise your right hand? Thank you. And could you please state your name?
Apollonia
And could you repeat after me?
Uhila.
Oh, I'm so sorry. And could you repeat after me? I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against enemies,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will be truthful,
that I will bear
I will bear
true faith
truth
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation
that I take this obligation
freely
freely
without any mental reservation
and without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion.
and that I will well
And I will well
and faithfully
and safely
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
I am about to enter.
I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Susan.
You got it. My pleasure.
What happened?
Monroe, I think you're muted.
Yeah, Monroe's muted.
Oh, sorry. I meant to say welcome, Mama D, and you are now free to vote away on this commission.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right. Having added Mama D, Commissioner Uhila, we will move on now. And item 2 on our agenda is the opportunity that we always provide at the beginning of the meeting for members of the public to make public comment on any items that are not on the agenda. Is there anything that members of the public would like to inform the commission about? If you want to say something, you can raise your hand using Zoom or come off mute and just let us know. Okay, not hearing any, we'll move on to item 3 on the agenda, which is our usual start of the meeting to get some updates from our county partners on things going on in the system. And we'll start with Judge Atazadi.
Well, good evening, everybody. You know, I don't really have much to say this evening, Monroe, except to continue to invite members of the commission to come to court and watch proceedings. I saw Joanna there today, this afternoon on my 6:02 calendar. So I would just encourage you all to come to court, just if you have never been, just to see how we do things.
Sounds good. Thank you, Judge Atazadi.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And next on our agenda is Ron Reyes from the Private Defenders Group.
Thanks, Monroe. So tonight I have 2 updates. One of them are just some numbers that Monroe had asked me to provide to the commission. And so the numbers, the stats he asked me to do, the number of cases we assigned out, the number of seatings we did in a month, and we also, I included the number of calls received from police agencies the last 4 weeks. So as far as appointments, we made 22 appointments. 2 of those were for 707B offenses. There were 6 petitions for record sealings filed with the court in the last 4 weeks. And we also received 39 calls from police agencies for kids who are 17 or younger, and they were detained, and the police either wanted to interrogate. So that was, or an arrest. So essentially those are, it's SP 203, and we have attorneys on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week fielding these calls. So that's the stat. And the second part of my update today would be just to give you a quick high-level overview of some of the legislation that the governor had signed. I know Wesley has some he's gonna update you on, but those are the ones I actually were involved in, some more heavily than others. So bear with me. I'm gonna do a quick overview, and I'm more than happy to share my notes after this with Monroe, and he can circulate it to everybody, to anybody who's interested. So the first legislative bill I want to talk to you about is AB 2361. All the bills I'm talking about, those are bills that have already been signed, and they're going to be effective either January 1st, 2023, or going to be one of them is one is going to be effective January 1st, 2024, and I will note that when I get to that bill. So AB 2326 that deals with transfer to adult court, that's a major change in the law now. It amends what this bill does. It amends 707A3 of the Welfare Institution Code. And now, by adding the following sentence, the court shall find by clear and convincing evidence that the minor is not amenable to rehabilitation while under the jurisdiction of juvenile court. You ask, what does that mean? It means that the court must include in its order to transfer the reasons why it found the minor not amenable to rehabilitation in the juvenile justice system. So that's a really major change and a welcome change to the transfer law. The next bill, this is a bill I worked on for almost 2 years with Jonathan Lava and PJDC. It's AB 2629. It's the dismissal statute. We were able to amend that statute. That statute is 782 of the Welfare Institution Code. So the statute right now gives the court discretion to dismiss a petition and set aside a finding if the court finds there's in the interest of justice, the person's welfare, if it's in the interest of justice, the person's welfare, or where treatment no longer needed. The new law then creates a great weight standard in favor of dismissal of the petition if one of following mitigating circumstancing exist, and the mitigating circumstances are enumerated now in the statute, and they are satisfactory completion of probation, rehabilitation has been attained to the satisfaction of the court, offense was connected to mental illness, victimization or childhood trauma. And if the dismissal does not endanger public safety. The one thing that this new standard that's been created would not apply if the person was convicted of serious or violent felony in adult court. So the great weight standard does not would not apply. The next bill is 2628. I want to talk to you about, which is the electronic monitoring bill. What does it creates a new code? It's 2628.2 of the Welfare Institution Code. And what this new statute provides that if a youth going to be on EMP for EMP stands for electronic monitoring program. So the ankle bracelet. If a youth is going to be on it for 30 days or more, then there has to be a 30-day review by the court. And at that hearing, the court would have to decide if there's a need to keep the youth on EMP, and then also entertain whether alternative options, such as less restrictive alternative than EMP. What also this new statute is going to allow now to give kids who are doing EMP, are serving time on EMP, also credits towards their sentence, and which is similar to what they get in adult court. It also, the code also prohibits from using any electronic monitoring system from being used to speak with the minor, record conversation the minor is having in their home, and to use it as an eavesdrop device as well. And there gonna be aspect to this new statute to collect data on youth serving EMP throughout the state. The next bill, it's a bill is a simple fix to what we have, something they have in on the adult side, but we don't have on the juvenile side. It's SB 1493, which is reducing, it deals with wobblers, meaning a charge could be a misdemeanor or a felony. So what this bill creates a new code section, which is 700.3 of the Welfare Institution Code. And then it says, if a petition alleges an offense that is punishable either as a felony or misdemeanor, the court may at any time determine that the offense is a misdemeanor, and the case shall proceed as a misdemeanor. So that's equivalent to a statute called Section 17 in the Penal Code. So that's now we have it here on the juvenile side. And the last bill I'm going to talk to you about is 2624 AB 2640. I'm sorry, AB 2644, which is custodial interrogation. This is the bill is not going to be effective until January 1st, 2024, not this year. The other bills I talked about will be effective beginning of this year. And this bill creates a new code section as well. It will be code section 627.5 of the Welfare Institution Code. It applies to kids who are 17 or younger, and it prohibits law enforcement from using threats, physical harm, deception, or psychological manipulation during interrogations. But it does have a public safety exception if the officer believes there is a need to protect life or property from imminent harm, then they can ask questions directly related to that threat. So that's my update in a nutshell, and happy to take any questions you have.
I just want to say congratulations, Ron. That was a lot of hard work, and you must be very pleased with the results that you've gotten this year.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Remarkable. It's very exciting.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. I see Commissioner Rasmussen has her hand up for the question.
Thank you so much, Ron. I appreciate that.
Sure.
I was writing that too slow. Could you tell me how many of the 22 appointments were for 707B offenses?
2 cases.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right, and Ron, you had said that you have some notes that maybe you could forward to me and that I could then forward on to the commissioners. So given
Definitely.
how much there is there, I think that would be great. And
Okay.
at your convenience.
Sure.
Thank you for that
Will do.
update.
Thank you.
That was very informative. All right, so moving on to our next update. We do have an update from Commissioner Liu for legislative coordination, but before we go there, I will call on Assistant District Attorney Cho.
Thank you, Monroe. Hi, everyone. So I asked Monroe if I could just take a couple of minutes tonight just to recognize the work of this commission primarily. I joined in February of 2021. So I've only, been here to witness your work over the past about a year and a half. And it's been incredible to see everything that you guys have been doing in that relatively short period of time. In terms of just the ongoing work that I know all of you are engaged in, I see you working with elected officials. I see courtroom observations happening, institution inspections going on. You visiting with the kids. I hear about the mentorship and the relationships that are being built. And Paul, your name came up once by a kid, saying, I'm meeting with Paul. And, and that all of that was very heartwarming to see how engaged all of you are in this work. And I think what I find uniquely just inspiring and impressive with this commission is that there's so much more than just talk that's happening. And so, just even reflecting back, knowing that I was going to be talking to you, I thought about all the tangible wins that I saw in this short period of time that I've been with you guys. And I think about things like, pillows and tablets and the clothes for kids to wear in court, which I saw happen today. I saw someone utilizing those clothes. And those are very tangible things that I see being done, which is so different than I don't want to put anyone in a bad light, but sometimes we see people on TV talking about all these great things and see so little actually being produced. And all of you, I've seen through this commission, the very opposite. Your actions speak volumes in terms of the passion and the commitment that you bring to all of the youth that this commission serves. And so even though I haven't been necessarily a loud vocal member of this committee, I just wanted to take this time to say none of what you guys have been doing has been lost on me. And I want to take this opportunity to also say that this will be my last meeting, and let you know that my replacement will be Nadia Hahn. She will be coming from the adult side. She will be coming out of the sexual assault unit, much like how I did prior to joining here. And she will bring with her a little bit of juvenile experience because she actually worked as a group supervisor, in the juvenile department. So she will bring that added experience with her. And I know she is very much looking forward to meeting all of you. So that is it. I know we have a packed agenda. I don't want to take up any more time, but I did want to say that before this year concluded. Thanks, Monroe.
Thank you. Thank you for those kind words, Sharon. And best of luck on your next venture as a judge. We will be calling. When do we get to start calling you Your Honor? Is that when do you get sworn in?
January 9th is the official date.
Okay. Wonderful, and congratulations to you as well. Will Ms. Hahn will she, do you know if she's able to join us at our next meeting in November?
I don't know if she will be able to join next month, but I have made her aware of the commission and the meetings. She won't officially start until December in her new role. So yeah, so there'll be a little bit of a gap.
Well, we'll reach out in the meantime. So thank you for that. All right. If there are no other questions or comments, we'll go on now back to legislative updates. I think I said it was the last meeting maybe that I let everyone know that Commissioner Liu would be stepping in to help with legislative coordination for the commission. So he has an update, I think, on some other bills from this past legislative session.
Yeah, thank you, Monroe. So yes, I won't be updating on the 5 bills that Ron just updated us on, but there are a few that I wanted to shine a light on. The first 3, I believe, have not been passed, but the others have been signed into law. The first is AB 503, limit on juvenile probation supervision to 6 months or endless probation. So what this law does is it says that juvenile wards of the court cannot be on probation for more than 6 months. However, unfortunately, it was vetoed by the assembly. So I'll be continuing to track what happens with that bill. And I'm sure I'll get in contact with Paul and Ron about that status. The next bill is AB 1615, expanded eligibility for transitional housing and homeless programs. So what this basically does is it shifts the age requirement, or the age threshold rather, for housing support from 21 to 24, and for transitional housing program plus, THPP, from 24 to 25. And this one was referred to the Senate Committee on Appropriations on July 13th, but the hearing was canceled in August. So I'm also tracking the status on this one as well. The next law is SB 904, which allows courts to order substance and drug education and state standards it requires the state standards be made on substance and drug education. And the last update from this one was that the Assembly Committee on Appropriations canceled their hearing on August 11th. So we'll again see what happens with that one. On to the bills that passed, AB 2169, criminal procedure. This one is that there will now be a possibility to prove that the victim of trafficking or violence lacked requisite intent to commit offense for charge to be vacated in the court. And this one was signed into law. So we'll be interested to see how this affects victims of human trafficking or drug trafficking, domestic violence, partner violence, things like that. Next law is AB 2321, confining youth to locked rooms. This one's pretty straightforward. Basically says that youth cannot be locked in rooms for more than an hour. And it also states that minors and wards should have adequate access to toilets. So this was signed into law, AB 2321. The next law is SB 1071, or juvenile records. This one basically expands attorneys and social services access to juvenile records, and also states that there has to be a confidentiality requirement for those who see the records, and there is also a promptness requirement, a requirement for the state agencies to be prompt, I think 5 working days for these records to be received. And then the last bill is, I'm sure Johanna and Paul are really excited, and probably you've heard of this, AB 2417, the Youth Bill of Rights. So this one, so under the existing Youth Bill of Rights, it only applies to youth in DJJ. However, this bill would extend it to youth confined in any juvenile justice facility. And in addition to the existing Bill of Rights, it would add that youth must have access to post-secondary academic and career technical education, and also access to information regarding parental rights. Now, the second part of the bill is that the ombudsperson of the Office of Youth and Community Restoration, in consultation with other specified parties, will develop standardized information explaining these rights by July 1st, 2023. And I know we were recently connected with the OICR liaison to the Bay Area, Deborah Lewis. So this is exciting to see the OICR work with that. That's it from me. Thank you, Monroe.
Thank you, Wesley. That's a great update. If there are any commissioners that have anything to add or questions for Commissioner Liu on those items, now's the time. I also want, Wesley, it would be great to get your notes so that we can include those in the minutes. That was a lot to absorb between your update and Ron's update. And I actually have a question. This is probably for Ron, or any other people who are regular observers of the legislature. Was this an unusually busy year in the area of juvenile justice, or is this actually the usual each session? We get this many changes.
And it was a little bit unusual just because this was 2-year legislative sessions. There's some bills where 2 years in the making, and like one of the 503 that Wesley touched on, that was also a 2-year bill. Unfortunately, it made it to the governor's office, but he vetoed that bill. So same thing with AB 2629. That was one bill at the first of the legislative session in 2021, and we have to revamp that whole bill in order to be able to pass it. So yeah, it's and I honestly suspect going after the election, our anticipation, we're not going to have as friendly of a legislator as we had this year. So we may not see as many good bills passed, but we'll see. Hopefully but we'll keep pushing. We have a list. I mean, we are already meeting for next year to come up with ideas, and there's few things we're going to be working on, and we'll do it again.
And Ron, when you say we, do you mean you and other private defenders around the state, or is there another organization that you work closely with?
Correct, under the umbrella of PJDC, Pacific Juvenile Defender Center. But there's other organization as well, like the National Youth for Lost Center, the Youth Lost Center also in San Francisco, and multiple other organizations who also get involved in the legislative work.
Paul, you had something to add or a question to ask?
No, I just want to add, great job on those reports there, Wesley and Ron. One of the pieces of legislation that I had the pleasure of working on with Senator Becker was Senate Bill 1008 that was signed into law, and the ripple effect that this has on youth that have already been tried as adults and are currently trapped in the school to prison pipeline. They will now be able to conference visit and speak with their families for free without placing that extended punishment upon the collaterals of those who are trapped in the system right now, that we're, as we just heard right now, expediting these reforms, especially to protect our youth from past legislation that have been harmful. So Senate Bill 1008 was a huge success, and a big shout out to Senator Becker for drafting this bill and for listening to those of us who have been urging him to do more. He's actually put his actions behind his words, and he's doing something about it. So I think that relates directly here to the work we're doing and how our youth from San Mateo County will be benefiting from this on the ripple end of this important piece of legislation. So thank you.
Shoot, I was on mute again. Thank you, Paul. That's fantastic. I was going to say another great win. All right, so we did pause earlier for public comment on items not on the agenda, but we also stop throughout the meeting to ask if there's any public comment during the meeting as well. And I think before we move on to the next agenda item, since there were so many updates on legislation, if there are any members of the public that they want to make a comment, please raise your hand. Okay, that's fine too. We'll keep moving then. So the next group to update us in this section is probation. And I know that Ms. Stauffer is either on vacation or at a conference, I think, or in training. I'm not sure which, but I know Ms. Superintendent Clark is here to give us the updates from probation. So take it away.
Hi, everybody. Yes, my counterpart, Ms. Stauffer, she's on vacation, so I'll be reporting for her as well. I may not be able to answer all the questions that you have for her, but I'm going to do my best. For institutions, we currently have 17 youth in custody, 14 males, 2 females, and 1 trans male, and we have 6 youth at camp. Since our last meeting, our COVID updates, we've continued to open up. So for the most part, most of the youth and staff do not have to wear masks as long as they're not on the intake unit or not a new booking. And I've been working with the school where we're going to resume kind of our old operations where the kids are able to change classrooms, which it helps the teachers out a lot. And we have a lot more providers coming back in person. As far as the juvenile numbers, on probation, there's currently 59 females, 243 males, 9 gang cases. We currently have 15 youth on EMP, 4 AB 12 cases. We still continue to have 0 placement cases. There are 16 juvenile POs. 173 cases are in intake phase, meaning they're also going through the court process. And we have, for assessments with BHRS, 2 petty theft in the petty theft program and 19 referrals to the DA's office for a total of 25 new cases that were referred to the department. And we have 117 youth on court-ordered informal and formal probation. So that is all I have. Are there any questions?
Any questions from commissioners?
Miss Clark's getting a pass today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great work, Miss Clark. You're doing great stuff. Thank
Oh
you.
no, hang on. I'm not quite going to give Miss Clark a pass. Yeah. No, Miss Clark, I do have one question, which when I was going over the minutes from last month, it made me, I realized the 9 youth on gang orders, that is not a subset of youth on probation. That is a separate classification, right? So when you say that there are 100 and I forget what it was exactly, but there's about 115 who are on either general or well, they're on supervised probation. There are in addition 9 with gang orders. Is that right, or is that a?
So the 9 make up the total. So they're out of the total, there are 9 that are specified gang.
So that's a subset of supervised probation?
Yes.
And that's a specialized group or type of supervision?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Got it. Thanks for clarifying that.
Mhm.
I mean, I just want to make sure that we did clarify that. So if of this 117 on supervised probation, 9 of that 117 are on gang orders.
Yes.
Okay, because sometimes we can't get the numbers to work if we do it that way.
And when you gave the numbers for, I think it was 54 females and 243 males, that is the total of all on supervised probation and in intake and assessment, as well as maybe in diversion. They're small
Yes.
number of diversion.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Got it. All right. That helps a lot. And we always appreciate the detail from probation. It really helps us understand what is going on in the system. Commissioner Flores, I see you having your hand up.
Thank you. And I apologize if this was already discussed, but is there any idea when the Camp girls will be going back, sleeping back at Camp and no longer at YSC?
No, we don't have a set plan for that yet.
Okay, is it in discussion? Is it something that's being discussed and worked out?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. Is that due to still COVID protocols, or is there, I know there's a staffing issue, but just wondering if there's just been discussion or if you guys are looking into that more.
For right now, we haven't been discussing it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I keep muting myself. I'm going to stop doing that.
See Joanna's hand.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to ask, do we have the breakdown of by race for these numbers for this month?
No, I don't have that. I could look into it and then send Monroe or yourself the stats tomorrow.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I want to say that we enjoyed our visit so much this weekend. It was so nice to be able to eat without the mask. It was really wonderful. So as always, thank you so much. Paul and Southwick and I are very grateful for the opportunity to spend time with the kids.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent Clark. We appreciate the update, and why don't we keep moving through the agenda this month. Ms. Pena from BHRS was going to give us an update.
Hello, everybody. Good to be here. We continue business as usual, seeing the youth in person on the units and the community and at camp. We are also trying to hire. I have 2 vacancies, so as many industries are having challenges in hiring folks, we are also, a lot of clinicians I think have found during the pandemic that there's a lot more flexibility in being in their private practice or just working part-time. Don't want to be restricted to a lot of in-office work. So telehealth is big, and folks are looking for more options to be able to do that other than come in an office. So, but we continue to provide the services, as I said, and I also just wanted to address that I had a conversation with Monroe last month that there were concerns that youth were being provided services through the trace law. And I just want to be clear that that was a very temporary situation due to COVID protocol. The CDC had their own guidance policies for correctional facilities. And so BHRS had to follow the guidance under the health department, correctional health there. And so when that was really basically for new youth that were coming into the juvenile hall, we like to do the first contact, inform them of the mental health services that are available. And so because they were not allowed to be out until they were cleared by medical, that's why we were at least introducing ourselves through the trace law without really addressing, any serious or very confidential information, no traumatic stuff. It was really about introducing them to services, validating how stressful it was for them to be in the juvenile hall and how to access our services. But once they were cleared, and that has been lifted shortly after Monroe and I had that conversation, it was about a week that had already been lifted. So we are able to meet with youth that are recently booked in person, and that's what we continue to do. So I don't know if anybody has any questions, any comments.
Paul, go ahead.
Thank you so much for that. So thank you. Yeah, that was very heart-wrenching to see some youth receiving those services through a hole in the door. And these are kids that are innocent till proven guilty, right? They haven't been convicted. We don't know their status, but they are in a cage receiving mental health services through a hole in the door. So thank you for that. The other thing I wanted to ask, in your professional opinion in dealing with many of these youth who do suffer mental illness, that restricted environment without some sort of step down, if there was some sort of step down program aside from the current adult-like cage that we're using there at the YSC, would it help treat the mental illness if there was some less restrictive environment that we would be able to provide our youth there, in your opinion?
I think any less restrictive environment is really helpful for anybody's mental health. But I'm not really sure what you're referring to as a step down program, Paul. So if you could say a little bit more
Sure.
about that.
I apologize. I assume everyone understands the jargon, so excuse me for that. So a step down program, like right now, there is no step down. These kids are released straight from adult cage. The door is opened, and then they're released right back here into our communities. They become our neighbors. We know that restrictive environments lead to sensory deprivation, which has recently been outlawed even in adult institutions, the validation process. I myself spent more than a decade in solitary confinement as a youth developing, so I know the impact that this has on us. And so the environment that we're currently faced with at the YSC is 180 adult cage-like cells / cages. If there was a less restrictive environment such as camp that kids could adjust to before transitioning into our communities, do you think that would be helpful to mental health, to give them that less restrictive environment? And you already answered a piece of it. So I apologize if this is a difficult question.
No, I mean, I get the concept of the step down program. I just wasn't sure if you were referring to some specific programming that already existed or whatnot. So I worked at Camp Glenwood for 9 years. And so I'm very familiar with that program and how helpful that type of setting was to the mental health of the youth. Something like that is helpful, just as in camp where they are able to then have the family therapy sessions or with other family members or whoever that guardian will be to help make that transition. But if somebody also has longer term mental health, that's not solely, it helps, and it's one indicator to support around their mental health, but there has to be more in the community so that they can continue with services. Does that answer your question?
That does. Thank you so much for that.
Sure, you're welcome.
And sorry, and doesn't when I last inspected the YSC, they were working on a meditation room, and it was very, very big. Is that still, has that been completed, developed? I know that was supposed to be a space for therapy. And there was murals and it was supposed to be really, really beautiful. I don't know if COVID has impacted or delayed that project, but I'm not sure if I'm just curious if
Maybe
that.
Ms. Clark could tell us the status of that and how it's being used.
So we don't have a meditation room. We have de-escalation. And I anticipate, hopefully, actually, I just made contact with the staff that's in charge of it. So hopefully within the next month, we'll be up and running. We just need to put the items in the room. So like clean it up and then put the items in the room. So I'm hopeful. But yeah, it was slowed down because of COVID. The youth and the staff did a mural in the room, and so that was slowed down just because, you know, over COVID we couldn't have people come in and things like that. So I'm really excited.
It's really great to hear, Ms. Clark. Thank you. If possible, or I don't know, when it's done, would you guys be able to send us pictures?
Well, hopefully, ideally I want to have like some type of opening, like, you know, kind of like ribbon cutting thing. So you guys, of course, will be invited to that.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you so much, Ms. Clark.
That's great. And I'll just note that in the next section of our agenda, when we talk about inspections, and also I put into that section an update on the Reimagined Juvenile Hall Committee. We could talk a little bit more about, you know, imagining alternative spaces or renovations and new spaces inside the hall. So let's keep going to our next set of updates. And I had put Ms. Johnson from Court and Community Schools on the agenda because she has been attending our meetings recently, but I don't see that she's with us tonight. So so we will just skip that and pick it up again next month, which brings us to Director Fong from HSA and CFS.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks, Monroe, for the introduction. I want to start with an apology for the report that I submitted. The numbers are correct, but on the first data point, which is placement of minors and non-minors, the in and out of county rates are off. So want to correct that for the record. For our minor youth, we have a total of 96 minor youth in our care currently, and an in-county placement rate of 72% currently, out-of-county placement rate of 28%, which is good. We're improving in that area. For our non-minor dependents, we have a total of 37 in our care, in-county rate of 35%, and out-of-county rate at 65%. So what you see reflected in the report that I submitted was a rate of minors versus non-minors in county and minors versus non-minors out of county. So can send you those a revised report, Monroe, if you'd like to correct that for the record.
That'd be great. We can attach that to the minutes.
Okay. I lost my trusty data analyst of many years, so you have to apologize. I'm still going through the grief process of losing her. So I will definitely get you that updated report. For our Bay Area counties, you know, we're improving in that area. So I guess that is the silver lining for our minor youth. We're almost at 88% in the Bay Area, maintaining placement in the Bay Area. For our non-minor dependents at about 81%. Going to continue to strive to get our young people back to San Mateo County and allow for them to remain in San Mateo County. As I've noted here in the past, we have some work to do, but we're going to keep on course there and keep trying with some good program development. In terms of relative placement, we're improving in this area as well. 40% currently of our youth who are in care are with a relative or a close family member of family contact, who we call non-relative close contact. and 60% with a non-relative there. So outside of that, no changes to our STRTP numbers, still remains low at 4, and no change to our 241.1 status youth at 9. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Hey, John, I have a question. Do you have a sense for how many youth are placed at Canyon Oaks who are also a ward of the court, either as a foster child or as an alternative to detention or on probation?
I would have to check. I can
Okay.
tell you I have 4 young people, 4 dependent youth who are in STRTP level of care currently.
Mhm.
I don't know exactly who is at Canyon Oaks, if anybody, at this
Okay.
point.
Where else would these youth be? I just did the Canyon Oaks inspection with Karen, and we realized that we had holes in our understanding of like how Elysian fits in or other STRTPs vis-a-vis Canyon Oaks. Karen, jump in.
I think that's a very accurate assessment. We were just trying to figure out how a child would be placed in Elysium versus Canyon Oaks, and whether it was the fact that there's on-site school at Canyon Oaks, which is perhaps the determining factor.
Yeah, so we are the same level of care as STRTP. That was the movement through AB 403 to remove the leveling system for group homes. Group homes were then required to convert to an STRTP model. That said, not all STRTPs are created equal. One of the key factors and differences between Elysian and Canyon Oaks is the on-site school. The other difference is population served. And population served over at Canyon Oaks, they serve at times public at large, education, youth placed through education, youth placed through probation, and also at times youth placed through my department through Children and Family Services. Elysian STRTP was a conversion from a transitional, a temporary shelter model. Also a move that came after AB 403, otherwise known as CCR. And the program statement that we developed at that point was to serve only WIC 300 dependents. So we only serve kids or young people who are served through public child welfare in that program. At times, rare, but at times we may have dual status youth at Elysian, depending on lead agencies and other risk factors. But generally speaking, at Elysian is WIC 300 kids.
A question that's sort of, oh, I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. I think the other question was, where else might they be? We have 24 beds currently in county. That's between Elysian and Canyon Oaks, both of which are county administered programs, but certainly other STRTPs throughout the state when needed, depending on the needs of the young person and the current census of the respective programs. Got to make sure that it's safe for everybody within program.
Another question that came up for Karen and me and Wesley also attended, we attended the JJCs discussing STRTPs. And the feedback from many JJCs is that there aren't enough beds, but it seems like our beds are empty, or not empty. There are only 7 youth. There's more capacity in our facilities. And I just was wondering if you had any insight into why that is.
Well, first of all, I would contend that that's a good thing.
Oh,
that young
not
people,
a critical statement on my part.
Yeah, no, I didn't take it as such. I just
Yeah.
wanted to state my opinion on the matter. I think it's a good thing that young people are, that we're finding ways for kids to live and reside and grow up in family-like settings when possible and when safe. I think in large part, it may be due to the movement behind continuum of care reform. I think jurisdictions are finding alternative ways to serve young people with complex care needs in the home. I think in partnership with behavioral health, understanding the community resources that are available to families, such as RAP services or otherwise, to serve young people with complex care needs in the home with their families optimally when that is possible. And again, I think the legislation also supports it. There's a pretty rigorous evaluation process by a third-party clinician who is required to evaluate whether or not a young person meets criteria for STRTP level of care. That's for our dependent youth who enter that level of care, as well as the court. So Judge Edazadi also orders and rules on the appropriateness of STRTP level of care as well. So I think it's a whole host of reasons that have been in the works for many years now. Locally, we have certainly been focusing on figuring out creative ways to allow for young people to maintain placement in family-like settings. To include, we have our own FFA. So we have our own foster family agency who provides intensive therapeutic services in a foster home setting to young people with complex care needs.
Okay, so we may be doing some things differently than other counties.
Yeah, I tend to think so. And we also have resources that other counties do not have.
Right.
Having our own, we are the only county jurisdiction that administers our own STRTP through the public child welfare system.
Oh.
And I believe one of the only that has our own county-run foster family agency to provide intensive care and therapeutic services in a foster family home setting.
And John, this may or may not be a question for you. Do we have any residential drug and alcohol treatment services for youth in our county?
Aurora, are you there?
I'm not circle back to that. I just feel like I remember a conversation from a few years ago, and that was a concern, and I don't think anything's changed.
It's actually something we discussed last year, and the status then was that there are only private facilities, not publicly run facilities. So let me jump in and just say that I see a few other commissioners with their hands up, Commissioner Wilson, but also if I could ask everybody maybe to be brief, since we've finished our first hour of our meeting. In our second hour, we have scheduled commissioners' business, like inspections and so forth. So we're just running a little short on time. But Commissioner Bocanegra has been very patient with his hand up for a while. So please, Paul, jump in.
Thank you, John, for that information that you provided. 35% you mentioned that are 18 and over that are living in the county of our foster youth that are transitioning. 65% outside of the county. Is there a discussion or a program that can really prevent this gentrification from taking place so that our youth have the ability to reside in their natural environment after being possibly deprived and ostracized because of the current situation beyond county lines? What is being done to restore our youth? Because right now, these numbers right here are not adding up. It seems like they're being gentrified and many of these kids have never had a shot. And so is there anything being done here to restore our youth to their natural environments?
Yeah, there's a lot being done, and certainly a lot of work that has to be done long term as well. Let me qualify the numbers first by saying that some of our young people ages 18 to 21 make their own independent choice by their own self-determination to move out of county, and that might be due to college, employment opportunities, or other resources that they might have outside of San Mateo County. Additionally, some young people remain out of county after being placed with a relative as minors, while in the system as minors, and while establishing roots in other counties, have decided to maintain their residence in other counties once they get into adulthood and emerge as young people. All that said, it is certainly a focus of ours. We have an aftercare program and THP Plus program, that's Transitional Housing Program Plus. Wesley actually mentioned the program, and some of the legislative updates is a program that serves up to 25 years old now. So there's housing and case management support there that is provided through Star Vista here in county. Additionally, I mentioned in the past, several years ago, we allocated close to $2 million to the Department of Housing to work within an affordable housing fund to dedicate units within the county structure for new developments for foster youth, young people specifically. So we have 24 units under development as we speak. One project has broken ground, that's 12 units. And then we have another 12 units hopefully on the way in Southern County as well. You know, it's a full system reform policy. You know, it starts well before their 18th birthday that we, you know, have to be mindful about out of county placement. One of the strategies I'm hoping will move the needle is the establishment of a transition of a temporary shelter care facility here in our county, which will hoping buy us a little bit of time to secure those late night placements the following day or 2 days later in county, as opposed to rushing to get a placement for a child anywhere available, which at times is out of county. So that's under exploration as well. That will take some time. It requires licensure and resourcing up and negotiation with the state. But those are a few of the items that we're working on. It's a really good question and certainly a shared concern by our department.
Thank you.
Okay, commissioners, I know you have more questions for Mr. Fong, but unless you have something quick, or maybe that's something that you could follow up over email with John on, I would like to move on because we're starting to run out of time. But Commissioner Huber-Levy, would you like to jump in now?
Yeah, I'll keep it very short. And John, I will follow up with you to have a further conversation. And this may also pertain to what Wesley had his hand up for. We had attended a conference call with 32 participants of 17 counties in California who are all very concerned about the continuum of care impact in their county, and gave very pointed examples and are really organizing to provide input to the state on what needs to change to deal with the problems that they have. And as I'm listening to all of this, my question is, we don't seem to have those problems. And I think you referred to some of the services we have in place in our county that may account for our different experience, but I want to make sure we're not missing anything. So probably Wesley and I and Melissa might schedule a call with you just to kind of talk through some of the examples they gave and to understand it a little bit better, because we seem to have a very anomalous experience in terms of the need levels and some of the crises that other counties are experiencing.
Yeah, Monroe, I'll keep it quick, but I just want to say that we are not exempt of some of those issues. We still do have issues, particularly for our young people with the most complex care needs, right? So, and we can get into it and discuss it further, Karen, when we meet offline. But there is still some service gap here in our county for those young people with the greatest mental health needs in particular. So been in constant communication with ZMR over at Behavioral Health and, you know, other partners to make sure that we're trying to figure out solutions here in San Mateo County. The scale is much smaller, to your point. In our county, the scale is much smaller. There are other counties who are dealing with a lot of grander issues than we can imagine here in our county. So we're doing fairly well, but there are some service gaps.
Okay, thank you. We'll look forward to having that conversation with you.
Surely.
Thank you, John. That's Always very informative. We appreciate you coming to the meetings every month. All right, so before we move on to other business that commissioners have been engaged in, like inspections, I'll pause again for public comment. If there's any members of the public that want to say anything about what we've just discussed. And I know that Chelsea Bonini, who is here, who has many titles that I'll let her remind us of. Commissioner Bonini, I know you wanted to say something, so go ahead.
Thank you so much, Monroe. So yes, officially I'm here as a liaison from the Commission on Disabilities with Ligia Andrade Zuniga. I also am a board member for the County Board of Education. And the reason I wanted to make a comment was I just wanted to make sure the commission and anyone who's attending from the public knows that we are so excited to have Monroe come to our board meeting tomorrow night, which begins at 7, to present on the many amazing things that you all do here at the commission, along with a couple of staff from the county office, including Shelley Johnson and one other person who I can't remember. But I hope that if you are interested in seeing that presentation, which I've been wanting to have come to our board for so very long, that you can go to our website, which is smcoe.org, and the meeting information is there. And if you have any issues, you can always contact me. So thank you so much for all your work.
Thank you, Chelsea. And so everyone knows, there's about 15 or 20 minutes on the agenda. I think it'll start at 7:30 or 7:45, where there'll be a pretty high level overview of what our commission is doing and what's going on in the county. So you're all welcome to join, of course. Thank you, Chelsea. Any other comments from the public before we move on to the next agenda item? Okay, so item 4 on our agenda is to get an update on what's happening with our inspections. And I'll call on Commissioner Rasmussen to give us a quick update on the overall what's going on. And then maybe if there are other commissioners that want to update on their specific inspections, they can jump in. Commissioner Rasmussen.
Thank you. Thank you. So basically, we are wrapping up our inspections for the year. Next month, we will have almost like a dedicated meeting where we will present, our teams will present their inspections. So all 4 will be done in one meeting, which is really, I think, a benefit to the community, because they won't have to go back and search, oh, what meeting was that, where I can find out about the inspections. They'll all be presented. So look forward to that happening next month. And I would just ask our inspection team leaders to start working on your presentations. There's information inside of the Google Drive. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'll give a brief update on the 2 inspections that I'm working on. I'm leading the inspection at the YSC. And we're just waiting for just some minor details, but there was that one thing that came up that I want to bring everybody's attention to. Samtrans has cut the bus route to the facility. So there is no longer any public transportation to court, to probation, for visiting, for families. I was very surprised to hear this. But it's true. I called Samtrans. I talked to them about it. I think it's an equity issue. My grandmother never drove, right? In many Hispanic families, the women don't drive, and the women are usually the ones who attend court and are there. So, I intend to reach out to some of the members on the board of Samtrans to find out why we weren't notified that this was something that they were looking to do, and to see if maybe we could at least get a bus to at least stop for like the morning session of court or the afternoon session of court. But right now there is no form of public transportation up at the YSC facility, which in my opinion is a shame. As far as the educational inspection, I'm also helping lead that with Southwick. And one and very important thing that we learned during this inspection period was that with our new Secure Track program, our children who have become adults, or our adults who graduated from high school, when we talk about vocations, I've always thought that probation was responsible for doing the vocation training in that facility. Well, through this inspection process and sort of helping lead the education inspection, I found that it's actually the school's job to do the vocation. Any programming that happens during the day is with the school. Any programming that happens at night is with probation. Am I correct in saying that, Ms. Clark?
For the most part, yes, it also depends on the status of the youth. If they're graduates, we're working alongside with education to look into secondary education. So that's why we have like Project Change, and then looking to expand or really develop our trades and vocational programming. So us working with them and then partnering with other, agencies.
I think, Johanna, I've spent time looking into this, and so I would refer to Title 15. And my understanding, well, ultimately probation is responsible for educating all children. The County Office of Education is there to serve probation in providing services.
Well, we actually they also follow Title 15. So there's mandates and regulations that they have as well. And I had a training today and I've been taking part in the Title 15 revision. So as we probably enter next cycle, it has to be, everything is going to go in, actually with advocates, probation department, CPOC. They have a work group starting actually next week, I believe. And then for everything to go into effect probably by July 2023. But a lot of that language is probably going to be shall, where education, the county offices of eds are going to have to do some of those things. But some things are required, and it's us as probation to make sure it happens, but it's enforced through their own regulations.
Thank you so much. So we did learn quite a bit, and that, so I guess the point here is so much is changing, right? Like we're really at a historic point. Like we haven't really found ourselves in this position with all this realignment, with our kids staying till they're 25. So there's a lot happening, and so I'm looking forward to this partnership with education, probation, and our commission to see how we can give our youth and our young adults the very best opportunity for success upon their release. I think those were the 2 points I wanted to bring up at this meeting. Again, we'll be having our next meeting, which is the last meeting of the year. We will be going over all the inspections. I would ask Monroe or Melissa and Karen if you'd like to give an update on your the Canyon Oaks and Camp inspection.
Yeah, I can say a few words about that as
sorry, Karen,
Yeah.
I see Paul with his hand up, and I know he
Okay.
participated in the YSC inspection as well. So Paul, if you want, is there something you wanted to add about the YSC inspection before we get to the other ones?
Yes, absolutely. There's something called the Victims' Bill of Rights that we have to also remember here, and I want to keep them in the limelight as well, as far as needing transportation to attend court proceedings, where one of the ladies that I am working with, her son was murdered, and she doesn't always have transportation. My personal experience, the same with my family, coming from an underserved community, lacking transportation at times, having to ask for rides from extended family members. I think that I was floored by this decision, and to especially the fact that we were not included here. Many of the elected officials who voted to do away with this transportation have all stated to myself, as well as you, Monroe, in personal conversations when we've met with them, that they support our youth, that they support our victims. of crimes, and that we support rehabilitation. So it was a shock to hear some of the people like Jeff G from Redwood City, City Council, Carol Groom, Board of Supervisors, the Uplift Program, Rico Medina, who I've never met with, Dave Pine, who I've met with on a couple of occasions, who supports youth, Charles Stone, who we met, who supports youth, all have voted to really break contact or harm contact between the reunification of family, as well as knowledge and awareness of all court proceedings, whether they are a victim or someone who is being accused of something, a youth who is being accused of something. I think that this decision to dismantle this transportation to this place where we're holding youth, that we encourage family reunification, that we would make such a decision to harm the families and the youth as far as dismantling transportation to this YSC. So it's extremely disturbing to hear this information, and I look forward to a follow-up meeting with many of these elected officials who I've just named, who voted to break this contact here. So
Are they on the Samtrans board? Because it would be,
correct.
okay.
So it's just shocking. And so I just wanted to state that for the record. And I will have a follow-up on this, because this definitely has to be addressed immediately. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you all, Paul and Joanna, for bringing this to the attention of the commission. I mean, I think it's the kind of thing that where we should be as a commission making a recommendation, you know, to the Board of Supervisors. Yeah, let's definitely follow up on that. Karen, you wanted to update on.
Yeah, just very briefly, but I just wanted to say thank you, Paul, for those additional remarks to really bring home how some decisions can be made on budgetary matters that have such collateral impact on other bigger issues. It's shocking. It really is shocking that that service would be cut. So I'm glad we're on this. I'm glad you guys have uncovered this and we can do something about it. On Canyon Oaks, we're wrapping up our work there. We do have a draft of our report on the Google Drive, so people can take a look at it and start familiarizing themselves with our comments and recommendations. There was one issue that came out of our work this year, which we are a little concerned about, and I'll share that with the group here. One of the things that we think are very important in doing on-site inspections is having the opportunity to speak with the youth who are resident in the facility. And we had some very good conversations. We ate lunch with 3 youth and they were, very happy to speak with us in one-on-one discussions after that. And they shared with us some of their concerns, which led to some specific grievances being filed and some follow-up being done, and I think some very good discussions amongst the administrators. And I will say that it is a very well-run facility, and we're very impressed with the services they provide these youth. And it is definitely an asset for our community. However, coming out of this set of inspection visits, the center reached out to County Council and shared their concerns about us speaking to any youth who were not specifically wards of the court or dependents of the court. And so the decision was, I guess, taken that we are, from this point on, will not be allowed access to any direct discussions with youth who are not wards of the court. And we're a little concerned about that because of the 7 youth who were resident there, there were, at the point of our inspection, no wards of the court. So we would not have been allowed to have, I think there was one young person who was on informal probation, so we might have been able to speak to that youth. But that youth was not one of the youth that sat with us. So we would not have been able to follow up on some concerns, which I think led to some good action. And we just wanted to share that with you, that from this point on, we'll have to be much more cognizant of when youth are wards of the court or placed in the court, placed by the court into the facility, and have the opportunity to sit one-on-one with the youth and understand their experiences. And it can be something just even as simple as the youth saying, hey, we really wish we had more input into the menus. You know, the food's okay, but, you know, we gave suggestions and those were not reflected. And, you know, we were able to follow up with nutritional services and understand that there's a dietitian coming and kind of reflect their concerns. So one of the things that the dietitian has been given as their mandate is to work with the youth and reflect some of those more culturally sensitive and just teenage sensitive offerings in their menu within the nutrition guidelines. So that's all. Melissa, did you want to add anything?
Just going forward, you know, youth interviews are critical, in my opinion. And so we need, whoever's doing Canyon Oaks inspection next year needs to make a commitment to do early and often so that we can still get enough youth perspective, because Karen and I learned some very significant things, which is possibly what compelled them to reach out to their county council about what was going on in the facility. And, you know, paperwork doesn't show that true experience.
And just to clarify, my understanding is that the issue is that if a child is not a ward of the court, then our commission technically doesn't have jurisdiction. And so, for example, if a youth were placed at Canyon Oaks from some other agency, then that agency hasn't given us permission as inspectors to speak to the youth. Is that the kind of the reason behind it?
I think that's the reasoning, but I guess I would read the legislation a little bit differently, that, you know, we're there to assess the services at the center. So, you know, if youth are referred by the court to this center, then we're assessing the center, whether those youth are specifically court, you know, wards of the court when we visit there. We're still trying to understand kind of the center as a whole and on an ongoing basis, not just a little snapshot when a court youth is there. You know, it just seems to me that it kind of makes it more difficult for us to get you know, to have access to that level of information, which I think as community members, I mean, that's why we're there, right? We're just supposed to.
We were also not given access to documents about grievances associated with non-court youth. So there are some serious conversations that need to be had going forward between Judith, County Council of Canyon Oaks, defining what our access is. And Karen and I are also going to be reaching out to Judge Edizati to understand what she feels our mandate is, because we are ultimately serving the courts.
Right.
And youth. Yeah. So.
I mean, we don't want to overstep, and we understand that these kids have some serious emotional and behavioral issues. And I think, you know, we try to be very sensitive to that when we're speaking to them as well. But it is an opportunity for them to share with a community member what their experience is, and you know, that's relevant. So that's why we're there.
I just wanted to, if I could briefly to talk about what Melissa mentioned. I appreciate you wanting to reach out to me, Melissa, but you remember my role is a judge. I don't give legal advice. And so really, no, I appreciate it. Judith Holliber is county counsel for the commission. And, you know, so I just have to say that, you know, it's a minefield, you know, the law is a minefield, and we have to be careful when we're stepping through it. That's all I want to say.
Oh, sure.
I appreciate the hard work and your interest and your passion to ensure that, you know, minors are safe in the facilities that they're in. But there are all these other rules and laws, and the law is complex.
One of our questions that, you know, we've had lots of conversations is just whether our commission should ask you at the beginning of every inspection period if there are things that we should be looking for on the court's behalf.
That's
Okay,
actually in the inspection instructions in our handbook.
let
We
me,
should-
let me give that some thought then. Sure, we
Okay.
can have a conversation, absolutely.
Great, sounds good. Thank you, Judge.
You're
Thank
All
welcome.
right, thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Commissioners Huber Levy and Wilson, and Your Honor for that input. Before we move on to, well, I was going to give a quick update on Commissioner Flores and I inspecting Camp Kemp, but I think before we do that, let's circle back to the issue about Samtrans, and I think that Commissioner Swope wanted to make a motion.
Yes, I move that the commission prepare a letter to Samtrans indicating the effects of taking away that bus route. It was hell on wheels to get there even with the bus. It didn't run that often. And with nothing, it's just wrong. So I think Joanna said she would like to work on that. So I move that we prepare a letter for the commission to consider and approve for the November meeting.
And I'll second that. I've been working with Paul on this issue, so if the three of us could work together to draft that letter, we've put a lot of time and energy into it to get the facts and stuff. So thank you. I appreciate everybody's support on this because this is a critical issue and it's something that we can make a difference in doing. So thank you very much.
And I would just want to suggest and maybe amend the motion slightly to say that you want to copy Supervisor Canepa on that letter and bring it to his attention. If you haven't, I'm sure you may have already, but you know, we do also need to bring it to the attention of the Board of Supervisors, our recommendations, and then that might also help, you know, speed up some kind of resolution. So
I agree. It should go to all the Board of Supervisors.
I would suggest that CC on the letter.
Especially the two who voted against it.
Right,
Determination
serve
of that.
on the Samtrans board. So if there's not any other discussion on that motion, which to repeat is to draft a letter from the commission to the Samtrans board and copying the Board of Supervisors, asking them to restore public transportation service to the YSC. Then anyone else have any comments or edits to that motion? Okay, it's been seconded. So all commissioners in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any objections
Aye.
or abstentions? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you. It's good to see the commission taking action and making recommendations, which I will use as a segue to wrap up our section on the agenda about inspections. I had also, so Commissioner Flores and I have been working on the inspection of Camp Kemp. I had included in this part of our agenda an update on the Reimagine Juvenile Hall Committee as well, which Paul and I serve on. And the reason I put that there was because I think I updated on this last time, but the Reimagine Juvenile Hall Committee is now at the point where state funding has been approved for renovations to juvenile hall facilities. I think we said about $1.5 million will be coming to San Mateo County, and so probation is working on drafting ideas and getting estimates for those. And I've asked for our input if we want to provide a letter or a memo to be included in that plan. Paul and I, our response, well, my response anyway in the meeting was that that's good timing because we are just wrapping up our inspections, and our inspections will be filled with recommendations of ways that we think that the institutions can be improved. So I would just urge the inspection leads to keep that in mind when making recommendations, that there is money available and that the probation is looking for input from us for ways to spend that $1.5 million to improve the facilities, specifically juvenile hall, primarily. And Commissioner Flores and I are also wrapping up our inspection report. I continue to see Camp Kemp as, I personally continue to see Camp Kemp as a model that of service to youth that we need more of, particularly for boys. Camp Kemp is specifically for girls, and since the closure of Camp Glenwood, we don't have the equivalent for boys, and I think we need it. Last thing I'll say on this is that even though this does not fall under the $1.5 million from Reimagine Juvenile Hall, because it's not the physical building, the one complaint I think across all of Camp Kemp and the YSC, and that has gone on for at least a couple of years now, is the food. And I'd like to see this commission come up with a specific recommendation to the Board of Supervisors on that, because I will quote one of the staff members I spoke to at Camp Kemp: food is fundamental for teenagers to be able to get the most out of the programs that they're receiving, and to to get the rehabilitation that they need. For any teenager, food, if they don't have good food, then it's hard for them to learn. Particularly for our youth that are in our institutions, we need to improve the food. All right, with that, I will keep us moving along because we're a little behind schedule, but I think we can wrap up in the last 30 minutes or so the other business that we have. I want to make sure that Commissioners Rasmussen and Bocanegra have enough time to talk about the Secure Track programming. But before we get there, Section 5 of the agenda, we have a couple of administrative things. I will quickly skip to 5B, which is I put a membership update for Commissioner Enriquez on the agenda. I didn't get any new information, so there really isn't any new news on membership, other than we're very happy that we finally sworn in Commissioner Uhila. I will say welcome again. But back to 5A, one of the last sort of pieces of business, in addition to inspections, that we need to cover in December is officers for 2023. So we did form a nominating committee, which Commissioners Wilson, Amaya Nori, and Lou are on. And I think Commissioner Wilson wanted to give an update.
Our committee contacted every member of the commission to find out whether there was interest and what interest there was in serving as a leader for next year. Monroe has stepped forward, interested in being the chair. Karen would like to be the vice chair in charge of membership, which is a big job, so thank you. I've promised some support. And then no one was interested in administration. So our committee was enterprising, and Wesley and Amaya would like to share the job of co-vice chair of the commission for administration. So that's our recommendation we're putting forward.
Great, and I will add that that's kind of where we stand now. But of course, if any commissioners have a change of heart and are interested in serving as officers next year, they can contact the nominating committee, and we can discuss that in December.
In November.
Sorry, no, I always get this mixed up. I keep referring to our last meeting of the year as the December meeting, but in fact, it is in November. And I'll also add that there are a few commissioners better organized than Commissioners Liu and Commissioners Nori. So I think they would be fantastic co-chairs of administration. All right, wonderful. So moving on, any other comments or questions about elections for officers for 2023? Okay, now we're moving on to, I think it is item 6 on the agenda. We have a recommendation from Commissioners Rasmussen and Bocanegra about secure track programming. So I will turn it over to them.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to pull up my slides here. Let's see where I'm at. Okay. All right. So as I alluded to earlier, we are at a time in history here in California on realignment and what we're doing and how that impacts our county and our children. As of right now, we have approximately 7 children that we would consider long-term. Not necessarily secure track children, but that may be with us for a significant amount of time. And going as part of our gang project, and after we passed the resolution in opposition of trying use as adults, this topic kept coming up in our meetings. And so I felt, and Paul felt, that it was very important that this commission make a formal recommendation on what type of programming is needed in this facility. And so I want to be very clear that we are not recommending a specific vendor and a specific program. We just have identified the essential core programming that DJJ used to offer. So in our process of trying to come up with some recommendations, this is what Paul and I have been doing. So we've consulted with DJJ experts, one in particular worked there for 25 years, and he was able to tell us what the successful programming was, because that's key, right? We want to implement programming that was successful. We just don't want to fill the space. We actually want to treat children so they can change their thinking and change their behavior. We toured the Santa Clara's secure track. We met with our private public defender's office. We met with District Attorney Steve Wagstaff, who has agreed that these recommendations are wonderful, and he's even offered to help us get the funding needed if necessary to implement them. We've met with district attorneys, public defenders, probation, JJDPC commissioners from surrounding counties. We met with the National Youth Law Center. We've met, this is very important, we've met with the children and families who are in the, or either going into this program or maybe going into this program. So we've been able to see what are the families' needs, what are the children's needs. We've identified core programming being offered by our statewide counterparts, and we've garnered support from elected officials, community leaders and members, organizations, and nonprofits. So the 9 core essential components of this programming are as follows: intensive mental health care, victim impact and awareness, anger management, substance abuse, restorative justice, vocations, life skills, mentorship, and parenting classes. Paul and I are currently working with about 20 children, and of those, 1/4 of them are expecting children. So this is important that they have these. So I'll just briefly, just to give some brief examples. Intensive mental health care, what are we talking about? We're talking about assessment and evaluation, individual psychotherapy, medication management, and the like. We're also talking about having these services provided to youth in a therapeutic environment, one that's been specifically designated for youth to receive services. Victim impact and awareness. So in a program, a victim awareness and impact program, youth are taught how crime affects the victim and the victim's family, their friends, and our community, and how it affects their own families, friends, and communities. So a program such as this touches on the emotional, physical, and financial impacts of crime and the trauma associated with it. It will help youth accept responsibility for their actions and behaviors and develop the skills necessary to change their thinking and behavior. There is also victim impact panels that some agencies use. Anger management, what does that involve? Anger control, alternatives to aggression, emotional regulation, dealing with inherited and cultural biases, moral reasoning, and effective communication. Substance abuse, drug and alcohol assessment, cognitive behavioral interventions, 12-step programs such as NA and AA, education and prevention. The DJJ uses a substance abuse subtle screening inventory to assess youth when they arrive. Restorative justice. What does this look like? So it's restorative circles. It's making amends to the community, to victims, either directly or indirectly. It's community service. It's hosting special events, maybe fundraising. It's mentoring other youth who come into the facility, and it's helping with delinquency prevention. Advanced education and vocations. This is kind of what we were talking about earlier. Helping youth either get their high school diploma or GED, college degree program, career assessment, union apprenticeships. Santa Clara, Google has their partnership with Google, and they have a coding program in the Santa Clara Secure Track. They also received a donation of a forklift simulator so they can be certified in forklift and get a union job at, let's say, Costco, and then maybe expand their skills and go forward. And unions are key, because unions are about second chances. And so unions do not necessarily hold your past against you. They're willing to work with you. Also professional licensing, things such as maybe barbering and cosmetology. Life skills. Now, life skills are very important. Decisive decision-making, gangs, negative peers and influences, teaching pro-social attitudes, thinking and behavior, money management, budgeting, establishing credit. Also, health education, forming healthy lifestyle and habits, nutrition, sleep, exercise, time management, job skills, and etiquette. You'd be surprised. Etiquette is old-fashioned as it sounds. It's so very necessary. Mentorship, individualized counseling, education, and support to help reinforce the skills and tools gained in the treatment. So this would, examples of mentors would be probation staff on the housing unit, helping the youth put into practice what they've been learning in their treatment. Counselors, service providers, community advocates, clergy, even coaches. Some of our detention facilities have actually started sports teams. Parenting classes for youth. And this is key because we want to halt the cycle of intergenerational trauma and abuse, because this will increase the opportunities and outcomes for success for the children of our incarcerated youth. So we believe that these 9 core programming areas are vital to public safety and to the successful re-entry of our youth back into the community. And we also feel that these recommendations are in line with the legislative intent of juvenile justice realignment, which was to reduce youth transfers to adult courts and to our adult prison system, to keep our youth in their communities, our native communities, and to transfer the responsibility of managing youthful offenders to the local counties. So what we're asking tonight is we're asking the commission to vote to adopt and approve the Secure Track programming recommendations. And once approved, the recommendations will be presented to the Board of Supervisors to advise them of the critical programming needs and to help secure any additional funding that may be needed to implement them. So again, these are recommendations that we received working with experts and stakeholders, families, and the like. And Paul and I are happy to answer any questions you may have.
I see Commissioner Huber-Levy with her hand up. Commissioner Rasmussen, would you mind going back, maybe sharing screen again and going back to the summary slide that had the list of the 9?
Sure.
I think that might help the discussion. And Commissioner Huber-Levy, you don't need to wait for that. Go
Yes.
ahead. You had questions.
So this sounds absolutely necessary and spot on, and I agree with everything that you're saying. My question is more of a process question. When how this fits in with the realignment block grant and the annual plan. I see that there's some things that are referred to in lists that are probably quite substantially included already in their block plan, but maybe some things that are not at all. And I'm just wondering whether your research in your discussions kind of unpacked some feeling that what is currently in the plan is not sufficient. And so what like, this is not just out of the blue, this is kind of in response to what's already been put forward as the plan. And that I'm not sure what the block grant funds are. But are we also saying that whatever they have in the block grant isn't enough?
So, okay, so basically, this is independent. So there is in our Google Drive, there's a secure track folder that lists every plan that all the counties are doing. It lists everything that we've done, the legislation, all of that is there. This isn't necessarily a response to what probation is doing. It's basically, as a commission, it's one of our responsibilities to recommend the programming. So they're in the plans that probation has submitted, they've listed some of these things. Many of these things are not in place currently, and we have children who have either graduated from high school, they have a lot of time on their hands, and we really need to fill that time. The commission has, through this whole process, has never made a formal statement, a formal recommendation, nothing on the programming. So this was more about how do we address this as a commission? And then the next step, if there were to be a next step, would be to work with probation to implement what they have in place. So there's like an outline of a plan, but there's no specifics as to what will be happening here. So this is just a recommendations on the types of core programming that were offered at DJJ that the experts believe are needed in our program, that we would be making a statement saying, we agree with these experts and we'd like to see this programming in San Mateo County. Does that answer your question, Karen?
I guess so, a little bit, but I guess what I'm wondering is if it's appropriate to also reflect that they're on their way to doing some of this, as opposed to, I mean, I just wonder if you're addressing the fact that, yes, there are a lot of specifics in there. I'm just looking at the December 30th, 2021 annual plan, because I guess there isn't one for this year yet, but whether we're, saying a little bit more even than the response could be, yeah, we know this and we're doing a lot of this, but maybe what you're actually saying is some of this is missing. You're not really addressing the restorative justice at all. There is intensive mental health care, but here's where there are gaps.
Exactly. So we don't have.
I'd like to step in here as I worked on this, and I'd like to use one of our leaders in the criminal justice words when he heard of this 9-point plan, which he 100% supports. Steve Wagstaff, he said, "I thought they've already had these programs."
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean? That's the Taj Mahal. Those are his exact words verbatim. So what we're asking for are programs that have helped myself in DJJ, and some of these youth will need these programs and in your words, that have been lacking. And so the only thing we're asking, this is aside from the things that they're going to implement in that vehicle. This is something that is completely separate from that vehicle. This is something that many leaders in the criminal justice system were under the impression have existed in this facility. And the only thing that we're recommending is that they receive these in a different vehicle, if that is the capacity we have to move them along in, so that they may receive. But yes, this is separate from what the things they're talking about implementing, right, and waiting for recommendations. This is something that Steve Wagstaff says he'll stand by us before the Board of Supervisors to support 100%. So as far as the process.
I understand that. I'm just wondering if you would strengthen your position even more by jumping to that next step to say, we understand that BHRS is going to provide this, this, and this, and we understand that FLY will provide this and this, because they do very specifically set out who's providing what in this, like whatever 20 pages. But if you've already done the thinking and the research and you know what's missing, maybe
so we were
specifically highlight that.
Yes, so we were given a very short amount of time, kind of last minute, to present this to you all. So we certainly, of course, we could go in if we had the time to go in to say, okay, what's missing with intensive mental health? We've identified that. We don't have a victim awareness program. We don't have an anger management program. We don't have a restorative justice or substance abuse program. We don't have a vocational program. We don't have a life skills program. We don't have a mentorship or a parenting program. Now there are plans to put that in place.
So my
happened
suggestion
yet.
is that we back this. This is fantastic. And then we just have a second document that's sort of a working document that highlights what is and what is missing. But that we can support this and then have this other document.
100%.
I was gonna say that, sorry, I know Commissioner Flores has her hand up as well, but I was just wanted to jump in to add that I was gonna say the same thing, and that especially before going to the Board of Supervisors with the recommendation, I think it would be useful to be able to say, you know, this is what is there already, or what probation has told us is coming by such and such a date, and then here are the gaps, right? Like here are the other things that we want to add. But anyway, that was my only comment. And Commissioner Flores, sorry, I saw your hand up.
Oh, yeah, I agree with all that, and I trust that Joanna and Paul have already probably done that research. I highly support this. I actually wrote a policy recommendation to the sheriff's office, something very similar, but for adults, back in 2014. Same research. I used evidence-based practices and found the same exact research. So I just want to say that I support this, and I would love to be a part of, or be able to support in any way that I can in writing the recommendation. So good job. I really enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you very much.
So we have a few more minutes in the scheduled time for our meeting. We are approaching 7:15. So do we want to make a motion as to what specifically we want to do here? If we want to vote on something and sort of take a position on it as a commission, then we should have something specific in front of us.
Well, I motion that we send.
I move.
I move. This is why I will never be chair, right there. I move that that we move forward and put this document in front of the Board of Supervisors, and then we do a secondary document, and if necessary, we can bring that in front of the Board of Supervisors. But I don't think it's a bad idea to come once and then to come and talk to them yet again. It just puts our agenda top of mind with them.
I second, if there's a second.
So just to clarify, your motion is that we give the same presentation that Johanna gave today to the Board of Supervisors, recommending that the county provide these 9 types of programs for long-term residents of the YSC?
For all residents of the
All
YSC.
residents, yes.
Yeah.
Because we have kids that are not even convicted, that were out here possibly receiving this type of skill. And if they are not convicted and they are sitting in a cage, they should have full access to these same programs, even if they were convicted. So all youth should definitely have access to these programs.
Commissioner Swope, you haven't spoken yet on this, and I see your hand up.
I would prefer that we refine this so that we reflect that we acknowledge what what probation and BHRS and HSA have put into this design, so that we look like we know what we're talking about. Because I think if we just go in making it look like they aren't doing anything, then it makes us look bad. I just don't, I think we need to be more specific.
I agree with that. If we can add a slide in there about what's already happened.
Well, I think that part of the reimagined juvenile hall, this is something that Chief Keen himself has opened himself up to. I think that however or whatever vehicle these recommendations come forward in, I think that Chief Keen is prepared to receive these recommendations regardless of the vehicle that we would like to move those forward to him in. He understands that there is a lack of programming, and that he also understands that there are changes that he'd like to make. And Monroe can attest to this too. So I believe that we should just move this in its proper vehicle, make its recommendation. We're all aware that we are striving to reform or improve services as well as the environment there in its juvenile hall. And I wouldn't see why we should refrain from moving this forward as a recommendation on the account that we may make someone look as if they're not doing something they should be doing. The whole purpose of Reimagine Juvenile Hall is because we already know we're not doing that. And so to put this off any further would just be, I believe, negligent on our part for the youth that we represent that require these services. And the quicker we get these recommendations before them, I think that it would help them in making their plans or bringing their plans together so we could collaborate. Probation understands we're a partner with them. Chief Keen has agreed. We all want the same thing, and we're just trying to go about it different ways. But that would be my recommendation.
Thanks, Paul.
So I'd like to make a point of clarification. So Paul and I have been working on this as individuals, and so we need this vote that you recommend this in order for it to become a commission thing, because we've been doing this as individuals. We're bringing this to the full commission to say, now, if we want to come back again and you want to approve the presentation, that's perfect. But we need to get started. And how we get started is a vote that, yes, we believe that these core programming is essential. And then we take the next step in determining what that next step will be. But until we do something like that, is technically not even the commission has not worked on anything like this yet.
We understand that. Sorry, I'm going to intervene just to say that technically we've reached our 2 hours. I don't want to stop the discussion, but I think we need a motion to extend the meeting by.
I move we extend the meeting by 10 minutes.
I second that motion.
Anyone opposed? All right, I think hearing no objections, the motion passes. See, I've learned something in a year, Susan. All right, so we have 10 more minutes to continue discussion on this. And Commissioner Huber-Levy, I see your hand up. I just wanted to sort of respond to what Paul said, just on a couple of things. One is that the Reimagine Juvenile Hall Committee and the money that the state has allocated is specifically for improvements to the physical facilities and not for programming. So while Chief Keen has said he would love to hear our recommendations on improvements and renovations to the physical facility, he didn't actually say, and I'd also love to hear all of your ideas on programming. That said, I know, and you know, Superintendent Clark's presence here every month and patience, you know, working with us all. I'm sure that probation would be happy to collaborate with us on this. And I think it's for that reason that I hear commissioners, you know, recommending that we collaborate with probation on this a bit more before we go to the Board of Supervisors by comparing what their current plans are to what we're recommending here. And in my experience, I'll just add that I do think we have a better chance of getting, for example, the Board of Supervisors to act and to maybe even allocate funding next year to some of this programming if we come forward, you know, in collaboration with probation and having kind of compared our plans to what probation already has. So so anyway, for that reason, I would actually recommend that we take the month to refine this and to bring more of that comparison to what probation already has planned and get their input, and then have something to vote on in our November meeting that we could then take to the Board of Supervisors at the beginning of 2023. That would be my suggestion.
I do think we need to take a vote on what's on the table. And then
Yes,
put forth another motion that authorizes Johanna and Paul to put this together for the commission to vote on in November.
yeah, and to clarify on that, I heard a motion from Commissioner Wilson to take this presentation to the Board of Supervisors, the presentation that Johanna gave tonight to the Board of Supervisors, to tell them about our these recommendations for programming for all youth, right? That was one motion that we have on the floor, and I think the other, and I think the other motion,
There's only
Johanna,
one.
is there only one on the floor? I thought I heard Johanna also recommend something that we should do that might be different from what I just said and what from Commissioner Wilson said. Johanna?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
It was the urgency of needing to get something agreed upon by the full commission so we can continue, our work, because this has been, like I said, individual work up until this point. And so,
Yeah, I don't think there's anything stopping us from you all from continuing the work and other commissioners joining you like in a subcommittee to refine the proposal.
Yes, and it wouldn't be this presentation was basically to bring everyone on the commission up to speed. This wouldn't necessarily be the presentation that we would give to the Board of Supervisors. And I know, Monroe, you and I talked about, would it even be a presentation or would it be a letter? Sometimes it takes 6 months. I know my husband just did a presentation for the mental health.
Could be all the above, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So we don't really know what that's going to look like. But what I do know is we need to get started because we have kids there, and we have elected officials who are willing to join us in getting the funding, and that's the real key here. Is
Commissioner Huber-Levy, you've had your hand up for a while, so I apologize for not getting to you.
No, that's okay. It was all very relevant discussion that took place in between, and thank you for guiding us through that kind of processing this. And thank you to both Paul and Johanna. I mean, excellent work on this. I think this absolutely needs to be done. And I just wanted to add that the other refinement that I think will be really useful for the ultimate presentation or letter to the Board of Supervisors is kind of just understanding what additional funding is necessary, like what is covered under that block grant. And if you are looking for support to, what's the quantum there, or where are the gaps where funding wouldn't cover? Because I know you mentioned that you have some support for additional funding, but there are funds already there. I don't know what that block grant is, but that's another thing that you guys can just make sure you understand or reflect.
I recommend we vote down the motion that's on the floor and make a new clean motion.
I was about to do that actually. Paul, you have your hand up. Do you want to do that, or do you want? I was going to take a crack at a new clean motion here.
Well, we need to vote on the one that's on the floor first.
Well, we could give me a minute, Susan.
Okay.
Paul, what did you want to do? What did you want to say?
Well, what I wanted to say was, as far as the block grant, and something that you mentioned was that we're talking about environment that money will be used for. This, as you said, is programming completely separate. So that money will not be used for the things we're talking about. And that's why we have the
that's something different. That's something different. The block grant is not the same grant that Monroe's talking about.
Oh, okay.
This block grant,
there's an SBA 23 block grant.
Yeah, so I was
and then
highlighting.
there's also money that came in this past state budget for changes to the facilities.
Right.
Okay,
So on that note, there's what I was referencing is that there is no monies for that right there. And so I think that, yeah, we should definitely take a vote. This work has overlapped even with Rebecca Flores's work several years ago, where she made these recommendations. And here we are again in 2022, two other commissioners duplicating her work. So there's a need here. And I think it's imperative that we take action tonight and really begin.
All right, I would make a motion to replace Commissioner Wilson's motion with a motion for the commission to continue moving forward to make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, probably in early 2023, incorporating these 9 elements of programming in juvenile hall, and that we charge a subcommittee, which would include Paul and Johanna and could include others, of course, to write a memo to the Board of Supervisors with some more detail about comparing current programming to what more we want, essentially. Is that clear to
No.
everyone, what I'm recommending?
And you could write that down. I think you just need to,
Write down that motion?
could you write all that down? That's an awful lot of stuff.
Can we just, can the motion just be to create a committee?
Let me repeat just to clarify, right? I want to make a motion that to replace Commissioner Wilson's motion, that the commission form a subcommittee to recommend to the Board of Supervisors programming in juvenile hall, which incorporates the 9 elements that Johanna presented tonight, and that recommendation to the Board of Supervisors compare what exists to what we want in the future.
That's better.
I'll second that motion. I'm sorry, I have a parent teacher conference at 7.
Yeah, I know, but we need to go.
Yes.
Any other clarification or questions on that, or can we
Yeah, just,
vote?
is the memo coming back to the committee, to the commission
Yeah.
Yes,
This is just a motion to.
for review? Yeah.
it's a motion to form the subcommittee
Yeah,
to refine
great.
the proposal.
That's
But-
all you need.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry.
Yes, I would keep it
Let's
at
form a
that.
subcommittee to refine this proposal, but I want to be clear so that we bring this to the Board of Supervisors in early 2023.
Yes.
Okay.
I second the motion.
And we've had discussion.
Thank you. And,
So-
any commission, let's take a voice vote. All commissioners in favor say yes.
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 Anyone opposed or abstaining? We've done it. We have a
Thank you.
subcommittee. We will
Good
move
night.
forward with this. Thank you, Paul and Johanna, for all of your work.
Thank you so
And
much.
with that, I apologize that we didn't get to the other items, but we will, this meeting is adjourned.
All right, good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night,
Bye.
everyone.
Right.
Good night,
Thank you.
everybody.